Let us go ahead and start with Brother Adnan's presentation. His topic is Unlocking Wisdom, How a Masjid Library Empowers the Community. And what he's going to talk about is how preserving Islamic wisdom is crucial. And one way to achieve this is by acquainting the Muslim community with the abundant heritage of Islamic literature. This can be accomplished through the establishment of libraries within mosques. And a little bit about Brother Mukhtar, who is also a master's student at TISA, is that he is a board member and an Islamic education and spiritual development leader at a local masjid in Atlanta, Georgia. He has a passion for bridging sectarian divides and spreading respect and tolerance, and he leads education programs in the masjid as well as on social media. He's a graduate of the Usul Din program from Medina Institute, from the Medina Institute in Atlanta, led by the globally renowned Sheikh Ninawi. He's been studying extensively under Sheikh Yasser Qadi for several years, and he's currently a master's student at TISA. Professionally, he's the vice president of sales and delivery at Capgemini, one of the top 5 global IT consulting firms. And I will ask Brother Adnan to go ahead and share screens and inshallah begin the presentation. Thank you so much, Brother Adnan.
Barakallah fiki. Thank you, Jazakallah khair, for this honor to be able to present to all of you. Okay, Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wa salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa man wala. I start in the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. All praise belongs to Him, and peace and blessings be upon Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and all of his companions and his followers. So as Dr. Mona said, our topic today would be how do we unlock wisdom and empower the community around the mosques that we have across North America and elsewhere in the globe. So let's first start with the framework for Quranic education as we learn from the Quran. This these couple of ayat, these couple of verses are from Surah Al-Jum'ah, the Surah of Friday, which sets out essentially the Quranic framework. The whole Surah really speaks about what is the job of prophets and those who follow them, and how that knowledge and wisdom needs to continue to be inherited and trickle down to the rest of the community to empower the community. So let's look at this ayah. Ba'da a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God says, Huwa alladhi ba'atha fil ummiyina rasulan minhum. And He is the one describing Himself. God is describing Himself, how He sent a prophet amongst the unlettered people. So what were the responsibilities of the prophet? That he yatlu alayhim ayati. Number one, that he recites the verses upon his ummah, upon his community. Wa yuzakkihim, and then he cleanses them through the message in the Quran, cleanses them and elevates them from their lower self to the higher self. Wa yu'allimuhumul kitab, and he's teaching them the book, the meanings of the book, wal hikmah, and not just the meanings of the book, but the overall message and the whole overall wisdom of the Quranic message. And they were in misguidance before. And also, they do this because the communities then can train the communities after them, the children and the students. The teachers are teaching the students, and the students are teaching the students, and they become teachers, etc., so on and so forth. And it's beautifully articulated in this last phrase, وَآخَرِينَ مِنْهُمْ لَمَّا يَلْحَقُوا بِهِمْ, and those after them who have not yet joined them. And this is the wisdom of the all-authoritative and the all-wise God, وَهُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الْحَكِيمُ subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we understand that the framework is really, the focus is the Quran and the Quranic message, and doing self-purification and elevating self to a higher self, and teaching the book and the wisdom inside of it. Also, in the Quran, we learn that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Ali Imran, وَإِذْ أَخَذَ اللَّهُ مِيثَاقَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ, when we took a promise, a covenant from those who were given the scripture before, and this is not just speaking to the people of the book, the Quran is speaking to us as the Muslim community as well, that this promise, it has been taken from us and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as well. وَإِذْ أَخَذَ اللَّهُ مِيثَاقَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ لَتُبَيِّنُنَّهُ لِلنَّاسِ, that you clarify and make it clear for people, وَلَا تَكْتُمُونَهُ, and you do not conceal this knowledge. Alhamdulillah, all praise to Allah. Our scholarship, we have a lot of knowledgeable people that have been around for 1400 plus years that are educating the community, writing books, giving durus and lectures. We have the first and foremost, the anchor obligatory action to gather in the mosques and be educated, which is through the Jum'ah prayer, the Friday prayer. So no one really wants to hide it. So I think our ummah is doing it. We know that the ummah is doing a good job educating. And they do that through, obviously, like I said, Friday is the mainstay. That is, as Surah Jum'ah, we learn that is an obligation on the community to actually attend and listen to the wisdom and the book and everything that goes along with it. We have halaqas happening, gatherings happening, where Islamic education is taught to the attendees. There are halaqas in the Masjid. People go to seminaries to actually learn, so that they can become teachers and they can teach students, just like we're doing at TISA. And everyone has access to books and material. There's information available on social media, and people are doing web searches. However, the mosque attendance is limited. One study says there's only 48% of the people that actually go to the obligatory Friday prayer, and much less in some of the other arenas. The lectures online, for example, on social media or YouTube or whatever, tend to be really, they tend to be long. We live in the world of sound bites, and I'm afraid, in my assessment, that a lot of people are in a place where there are a lot of assumed knowledge about Islam and the Deen, and we'll look at some of the challenges in a second. But there is a large gap, and as we learn in Surah Al-Jum'ah, we have become these donkeys with books in our back. مثل الذين حملوا التوراة ولم يحملوها. They're the people. The example of these people are those that the previous nations who were given the scripture, but a lot of it was hidden. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the metaphor that the books were really behind their backs, as if they knew that they had the books and the knowledge, but they were really taking advantage of it, just like a donkey doesn't know how to take advantage of the books on its back. So this is a state that we need to do more. We need to have more channels available for the community to access the knowledge that I feel is locked up. So what is the status quo? Again, in the Quran, in Surah Al-Baqarah, we learn that those who do not know the book, لا يعلمون الكتاب إنهم إلا يظنون, they are only assuming what's in the book. A lot of people are stronger on the whys of Islam and the whys of the message, but there's a lot of weakness on the whats and the hows. There's a strong relationship with the Creator, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's a lot of focus on worship, sort of selfish worship, following the mandatory acts like praying and fasting and umrah and hajj and praying zakah. But there is in our assessment, and we can see, I think everybody would agree, there's a much weaker relationship with the creation of God, how you deal with people, the etiquette, the adab. We still have, a lot of flaws in our ummah, where there's cheating, backbiting, taking their properties from others unjustly, a lot of injustice. Even within families, there's broken relationship. There are books, there are Qur'ans on the shelves, and they're collecting dust. People have limited Sunday school knowledge. There's unfamiliarity with even the basic fiqh. There's unanswered existential questions in the generations that are coming up, the Gen Z, the Gen Alpha, and thereafter. There's existential questions that the people of knowledge even don't have answers to. And in my assessment, there is overall unqualified chaplaincy in the masajid, and the imams, they are themselves not enough educated to address the existential questions and answers, and to answer people on basic questions of the fiqh and the how, and actually inculcate the having a extremely strong relationship with the creation. So what are some of the barriers? So the barriers that there's a common misunderstanding that you can only get knowledge from educated scholars, otherwise knowledge is dangerous. There was a reason for this before. However, we live in a completely different world, and we need to look at somehow breaking this barrier and addressing this barrier, where the scholars become the chaperones of knowledge, and but we need to be able to give access to the right guided knowledge through the scholars to the community. Otherwise, it's going to be a free for all. People are comfortable with just check the box deen, where I come to the masjid and I pray, and that should be enough. If I fast, that should be enough. And the richness and the message of the Quran is not really available, or there's very little interest in my decades of assessment with the community. There's dangerous Quran translations out there. Dangerous in the sense that it doesn't carry the depth. The translations definitely don't carry the depth. There's really dangerous hadith translations, which leads to misinterpretation and do-it-yourself Islam. There's some subpar standards in our Sunday schools, at least in North America, which are not really properly educating students. Again, it's if my child knows how to read the Quran, that's good enough for me. If they have basic knowledge and they can list out the 6 pillars of Iman or whatever, that would be good enough. There's a comfort with the Bedouin minimum, if you catch my drift, with the Bedouin that came to the Prophet, is like, okay, what is it, the minimum that I need to do? Okay, this, okay, is that all? It's like, yes. And they're comfortable with that. There's unfamiliarity with the available and the richness and the abundant wisdom that's out there, that's trapped in the book. And there is unfamiliarity with the landscape of the knowledge and how deep some of this information goes. And I think the biggest barrier, which unfortunately is rampant in the Muslim Ummah, other than the Arab countries, which is very little focus on educating people Arabic, because a lot of this knowledge is locked up into Arabic. There's incomprehensibility of Arabic overall in the Ummah. It's really a bad situation, I feel. It's heartbreaking. And as a result, I think this knowledge remains locked up. But alhamdulillah, there's a lot of translation work going on that's actually unlocking some of this wisdom, making it accessible. But what is our job as chaplains to actually take this knowledge forward? So are we to blame? Are we to blame? In my assessment, we are. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Baqarah, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَكْتُمُونَ مَا أَنزَلْنَا مِنَ الْبَيِّنَاتِ وَالْهُدَى. Those people who are concealing this knowledge, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that there's curse upon them. But our job is, what is our job? وَأَصْلَحُوا إِلَّا الَّذِينَ تَابُوا. Those who check themselves, repent, and correct themselves, وَأَصْلَحُوا وَبَيَّنُوا, and they clarify and explain to people things that they had been hiding. They're not hiding intentionally, but I think much more work needs to be done to actually clarify and give people, first and foremost, the access to Quranic knowledge and the depth of the Quran beyond the other channels of lectures and khutub and Friday prayers. فَأُولَٰئِكَ أَتُوبُ عَلَيْهِمْ. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will look kindly upon them and accept their repentance. So what we want to do is convert that image of that donkey with the books in the back with a person who actually has access to the books, so they can benefit from them. What are the transformative outcomes? The community then develops a deeper understanding of the Quran through the available knowledge, not just through the lectures, but the guided way that the leaders in the mosques can help people gain access to books in a library where they can access the tafsir that are available, be able to explain. They go and read the tafsir on their own, or the books of hadith, and then they can ask the right questions, and it will enrich and develop their curiosity. They will be then familiar with all of the 1400 plus years of scholarship, the names of the top scholars, their lives, their biographies. They will understand what they dedicated their lives on, what are the wisdoms that they had written down. You can fill, as we all know, parking lots with the amount of literature, Islamic literature that's available. Unfortunately, most of it is still in Arabic. And they will then appreciate the enormity of the turath, the heritage, the Islamic heritage. So it is akin to when the Mus'haf was compiled. When the Mus'haf was compiled in the book, it was physical, it was tangible. People could read and review the dhikr. That is great. It's still in Arabic, but now what about the depth, the Quranic framework that we saw earlier from the prophetic framework that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has laid down, is educating people with the wisdom. The wisdom is all in those books. The wisdom is all in understanding the hadith and what are the takeaways and what do you do with them. But none of that is tangible to the general community. It is only tangible to the scholars and the students of knowledge. How do we broaden that access to the rest of the community, where they can we can do deeper study and then do self-reflection? So this is what we want to be able to do. In Surah Al-Furqan, the very, very beautiful last passage, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and وَعِبَادُ الرَّحْمَنِ, and the servants of the most merciful, Ar-Rahman, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those who وَالَّذِينَ يَقُولُونَ رَبَّنَا, and toward the very end, they make a dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what is the last phrase of that ayah? وَجَعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا, and make us from the leaders of the muttaqeen, of the pious. So how do we get there? How do we become those leaders? When we are empowered with knowledge and wisdom. And that is the goal that we want to attain. And one way to do that is to foster and build libraries within the masajid, which I have seen very little of. There are books in the shelves, but they're not really well curated. They're not necessarily topical. There's a lot of books that are donated, that serve very little purpose, and most of those books are extremely basic, not very helpful. So we need to establish libraries with broad topical coverage on tafsir, hadith, obviously designed for the community here from North America, definitely in English, and accessible tafsir, not complicated tafsir like Ibn Kathir, which I think only advanced students of knowledge can take benefit from. But for the regular everyday Muslim, it's difficult to grasp, and that is why there's a disconnect. There's a huge disconnect, and more focus on just the translations that barely serve the purpose of the message of the Quran. So one tafsir, for example, I have in mind, a tafsir as-Sa'di. Is it the best? No, but it's still accessible, and inshallah, more work needs to be done where more tafsir are written for the modern folks. Give them access to different hadith selections. I have here an attempt in my masjid that I'm trying to do, is trying to build this library. I just recently started. I didn't order like Bukhari or Muslim because I think they're not serving the purpose. Therefore, they're for scholars, not for everyday Muslims. So we have actually ordered Riyadh al-Salihin with the explanation from Ibn Uthaymeen. So there's not just a hadith body. There's actually explanation that people will have access to, so they can benefit from it. And I can talk about these books later in Q&A session. So we need to at least have beginner level books, and maybe some beyond. There needs to be a dedicated space in the masjid where somebody can sit comfortably. It will increase the foot traffic in the masjid as well, if that is part of your intention and niyyah, to increase the foot traffic in the masjid. But this is the job of the leadership in the masjid to actually establish this, make it comfortable for them, make the library accessible, learn from the churches and the synagogues, and they've been doing this for many years. And what are some of the lessons that we can learn and adopt some of those practices within our masajid and even the secular centers, and establish librarians. So promotion is the key. people, you can have a library out there set up, and is it going to be used? No, because people don't really know what those books are about, what are the contents. We need to constantly promote. For example, one thing that I've done for my masjid is I have a library page, and again, I'm just starting with this endeavor. We have a page, a library page set up where every single book or set of books is explained, and its purpose and its brief, who wrote it. We're trying to do khutbah tie-ins and halaqa tie-ins to actually talk about the books, teaching from the books. There's book clubs that we can start. There's community-led study where actually students who are reading the book, they actually talk about some of the favorite things that they came across and the wisdoms of the book. The book of the month kind of thing is something that we can also do. These are just some ideas. We need to have a digital library, so they're not just tied to the physical books in the masjid, but those books are digitally accessible, and even leverage social media to promote the books. So some of the challenges, really, it comes down to these books are not cheap. It's very, very expensive. This little library picture that you saw earlier, it was about $2,000 that we had to spend to actually get this book. And actually we asked for community donations to build it. So for other chaplains and imams over here, we need to, you need to have a very strong value case with your board. I am part of the board member, so I had a little bit of a greater influence. But if you're not part of the board and you want to start something like that, you have to have a very strong value case and explain what is the need here. You need to have actually physical books as well, and then ideally for larger masajid, dedicating a space and comfort and have a cafe style access. But that is a challenge. Funding is a large challenge, because if you have limited books, can you really allow check-ins and checkouts of the books? This is a huge problem, because you need to have a large number of books in order to facilitate that, because oftentimes the books will be checked out and never returned. You will be challenged with limited selections, because again, funding is a challenge. You might have burnout and over promotion because you have limited set of books and then you're promoting them. And then we have to be careful about sectarian divides and what kind of books do you order, and you have to address that challenges. I don't have good answers for all of these at this time, but this is I just wanted to end here and see if there's any questions that I can answer in the few minutes that we have.
Jazakallah khair, Brother Adnan. Honestly, this presentation, actually the content was so near and dear to my heart, because I have a lot of history with libraries. Ever since age 7, I started the library at the Richardson Masjid with my father, and library at his home, library at our home. And the issues you mentioned are so on point with regards to the challenges that we have, the status quo, the barriers that we have, and then some really great ideas for how we can overcome those barriers. And, I never thought of promoting, the books and the authors. And, there's so many great, reflections that you had, clearly with a lot of thought. But there's subhanAllah, I can really relate with this. And I hope that more people can hear this presentation. You also mentioned, that we're competing with the digital world. I know one thing you mentioned is that some of the books you feel are more for a scholarly audience, while at the same time you mentioned that scholars might need to be re-envisioned as being, chaperones to knowledge. Right. I find that personally working with youth, I feel like my greatest mission is to form a bridge between, scholarship and relevance, right? Having youth feel the relevance of our authentic sources. So do you have any thoughts on that gap right there of if we were to sort of remove some of those costly, let's say sets of authentic books from the shelves? I know how you feel about Ibn Kathir, you mentioned. I mean, I understand, but at the same time, then will the youth and some of the, adults and growing generations, will they ever develop that relationship or appreciation or understanding of the value of those? And I'm not saying that you meant that that's a ultimate thing, but just what are your thoughts on that?
I think we need to have this train the trainer mentality, and it's not just we need to, I think, unshackle ourselves that this information if you want this kind of access, you have to be a student of a seminary. I think that again creates another silo, a very large silo, where just the students in the seminary know all this knowledge and the scholarship and the books, etc. And there's this large divide that there's the general community, there's the scholars, and then there's the seminary students. What is in the middle? That's most of the ummah. So I think through the book clubs and through the community-led kind of events, I think we can raise leaders from within the community that actually study the books, review it out. This is something that I found that was great in it, through the book clubs kind of thing. And then that will then blossom into some students going and getting admitted into TISA-like institutions, become students of knowledge and elevate themselves, or just stay there. That's completely fine. But at least they are educated enough and they have access and can really possibly know which books to look at to answer some of the existential questions that their own children are asking them, that they don't have any answers to. And they're not just locked up by having access to knowledgeable ai because even knowledgeable chaplains, there's few and far between that can actually answer the tough questions. And all you're left with is just the YouTube videos and just knowing who to listen to. But there is such a large amount of videos out there. It's like they don't even know how to navigate that. That's a whole different challenge separately. I think just like a library project, somebody needs to have another Islamic video YouTube library project where things are actually taxonomized and categorized so people know how to take advantage of it. I've done such a thing for an initial audience with some videos, but again, it's a challenge I think we all need to explore to solution these together.
Absolutely. And I really hope that many more people get to hear your very important presentation, Brother Adnan. Jazakallah khair. And you brought up YouTube, which is another competitor to our books right now.
Yes.
You mentioned a whole nother, and now there's different generations of
That's right.
videos, right? So anyhow, inshallah, the conversation goes on.